Franke's being held on a no-bail hold.
The women had been offering relationship advice on their podcast.
Police department!
Guns drawn as police scour room to room in Franke's home.
And no one's ever made any allegations that he's ever physically abused those kids or anyone else.
Then they were going to go pick some tomatoes and make salsa. Like, it was this very wholesome, like, family thing going on there.
What was your reaction when you heard about these charges?
Disgusted, horrified.
If you cut one more thing in my house, and I'm gonna cut its head off.
Grandma will be so mad! Springville, and my neighbors have been telling me that they have been left home alone for about 4 or 5 days.
Body cam footage from the day of Ruby Franke and Joe Hildebrand's arrest has been made public. It is quite disturbing and revealing, as we hear from Pam Botcher, the third member of the Connections group and the person who was caring for Ruby's 2 other children on the day of the arrest. The video, and Connections group star Jod and Ruby. The video captures her response to learning of their arrest, as well as how Ruby's kids had spent the day with her and her own explanation of the Connections group. As a result, for the past week, Jod and Ruby have been the main stars of the Connections YouTube page. It has been fascinating to learn about this third member and hear her takeaways about the situation.
Keeping them home from school and wiping the floorboards would really bring pain.
I am beyond disgusted. It is truly unbelievable.
Some have noted that she didn't appear overly upset when they told her that it was Ruby and Kevin who had been arrested, but that information has since been disproved. Pam's involvement and police questioning. We now know that Kevin Ruby had called Pam that day, saying she had a family emergency and needed her to go pick up her 2 daughters and take them to her house. Pam had the 2 girls in her care at the time of Jod and Ruby's arrest, and when the police arrived at her home, they placed her in handcuffs and questioned her about what she knew, how she knew Ruby, and how she got the girls to the house.
But she's in business with a woman who has gained a huge following online, with YouTube videos getting hundreds of thousands of...
Took the phone away from Abby in November, and you may never get the phone back.
Pam's husband explained to the officer that Ruby called Pam and asked her if she could pick up the girls, and Pam agreed. She explained that the girls had been helping them clean because they had guests coming from Costa Rica later that night. Pam also explained to the officer that the girls had been helping around the house. They had come over willingly, and she said that she made them scrub the floors and the girls vacuumed, but claimed they did that on their own free will. So as long as she's not tied up and bound because you know I didn't make her scrub, Pam stated. People were upset to hear that she made them scrub the floor, even though Ruby's phone call alone had indicated there was a family emergency. These people are mentally bankrupt. Connections Group and DCFS questioning. Pam, a former president of Connections Foundation, was questioned by DCFS about her relationship with Ruby and her children. She claimed to have taught the girls various life skills, such as making jam and sewing, and they had previously come to her house for chores. Pam also mentioned that she met the family through Connections, a life skills program that teaches honesty, responsibility, and humility.
Breaking the door open, going into the home, and looking throughout. I know the video you're talking about, though.
If you cut one more thing in my house, and I'm gonna cut its head off.
Grandma will be so mad!
However, her comments about the program's harsh tactics and its impact on children's lives are concerning. Connections Foundation's tactics were harsh, leading people in the wrong direction, making people feel bad, giving bad advice, and constantly getting called out for their teachings. They believed that any advice they gave would lead children to hate their parents and isolate them from their extended family members. Despite this, Connections Foundation had followers and people who looked up to them for help. Pam's casual talk about the program to DCFS is interesting, as she claims to be the president.
Springville, and my neighbors have been telling me that they have been left home alone for about 4 or 5 days.
So up until now, I was really hoping that keeping them home from school. And
police say this is the house a young child escaped from and went to a neighbor's house asking for food and water.
Of Connections Foundation. It is concerning that people still listen to these individuals, and it is concerning that Pam is also part of the program. Pam's involvement and casual attitude. But later, when the Springfield police interviewed her, she explained that when she went to pick up the girls, she told them that their mom said there was a family emergency, and she told Pam that they could come and help her clean that day. They said okay and went with her. Once again, we're going to say that for it to be that casual for her to make them do chores after telling them there's a family emergency is crazy behavior.
After one of them escaped from a house of her business partner nearly 4 hours away in Ivins, Utah.
What was your reaction when you heard about these charges?
Disgusted, horrified.
These people who run a business together where they give parents advice on how to raise their children are literally willing to give distressed children chores to do. Literally all because Pam had guests coming from Costa Rica. This is crazy. She prioritized having a clean home instead of being like, let me make sure these children are all right because there's a family emergency and their mom can't be there for them. Like, seriously? What the heck? And these beliefs clearly are what landed two of them behind bars because they have no idea how to actually raise children or handle them at all. There's zero care. 911 call and neighbors' concerns. But Pam was later asked if Ruby gave her a plan of sorts or whether the girls were going to stay the night with Pam or what. But in her words, she said that she planned on putting them home tonight. We think she was going to just leave them there with or without Ruby because that seemed to be something that a lot of people have mentioned as this case has been going on.
I think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and they gave my room back.
Do what's best for his kids, get them back, get them under his tutelage and his fathership, and protect them.
Ruby would leave the kids home for days at a time unattended. So we feel like Pam would have just dropped them off at the house, whether Ruby was there or not, family emergency or not. She just would have left them there. That's how she was making it seem to police, though that was her plan. Well, previously we had heard that Sherry last year had even called the police because she was hearing that her siblings were left home unattended. The 911 call was released and Sherry said, "Hi, my name is Sherry Franke. My 4 younger siblings are living in Springville, and my neighbors have been telling me that they have been left home alone for about 4 or 5 days." Neighbors had also previously spoken with NBC, coming out to say that Ruby would leave the children home alone, and they wrote, "Neighbors said that Franke began spending more time away from her home in Springville after she got involved with Hilderberg's Life Counseling Service Connections, which has been criticized online for the way it teaches parenting to its followers."
Well, we have to physically see her.
A different police agency finding them miles away and turning them over to the state.
We are in complete shock still as to what she had done because we had no idea of what was happening.
The teachings include prioritizing the organization's principles of truth over a person's children. The male neighbor recalled how Franke's youngest daughter, Eve, who was approximately 10 years old, would wander the neighborhood while her mother was away for prolonged periods.
Then they were going to go pick some tomatoes and make salsa. Like, it was this very wholesome, like, family thing going on there.
Ruby Franke and her business partner and co-defendant Jody Hildebrandt were denied bail and are in jail.
After she kicked Kevin Franke out of the house, Eve would look for companions in the community. The neighbor said it did not seem like she was attending school. The Nebo School District, which represents that Springville area, did not immediately return a request for comment. The intensity of the arrest. She would just knock on your door and say, "Hi, can your kids play?" She would reply, "Well, they're at school. They won't be home for 3 or 4 hours." And she'd be like, "Oh." She added, "She's like this lost child." So to hear her say that she was going to drop them off, we can already see she wasn't too worried about there being a family emergency.
And no one's ever made any allegations that he's ever physically abused those kids or anyone else.
Said she had a family emergency.
And needed to pick up the girls.
Yeah, she said, "Would you mind watching the girls while I'm gone?" Because she was leaving.
Imagine if she did, because the way that they raided the house was violent. The door was knocked down in this house. They were looking for those girls since at the time of the arrest, they were only able to find 2 children, and they were looking for the other 2 that Ruby had under her care. They had gone to Ruby's house, busted down the door, guns drawn. It was a very scary situation.
Police department!
Guns drawn as police scour room to room in Franke's home.
And most of the time we're trying to make our kids happy. What we're actually doing is being in distortion and inviting them into a controlling dynamic.
Had they actually been inside that house, that is a horrifying sight to see. It was just so intense, and rightfully so. It was a very intense and important situation, trying to locate those two girls given what had happened and what they had witnessed with the other two children under Ruby's care. Body cam footage and public reaction. But just so scary to think about them having to witness that. And also, if Pam had pulled up to that, it's just crazy to think about, honestly.
The criminal side could actually have a lot of influence on the family case because these are charges related to child abuse.
Franke's being held on a no bail hold.
The women had been offering relationship advice on their podcast.
Everything about this and what she had to say, her talking about connections so casually, her talking about this family emergency so casually, her talking about them scrubbing the floors for her so casually. There's just so many opinions and feelings that have come from the body cam footage that has recently been revealed from this day, and also the footage that we talked about recently from Kevin. It's clear if they will be releasing footage of Ruby and Jody's arrest. People are certainly curious about that, but as of right now, this is what has been released. That's all for this, folks. See you next time.